This is Under the Radar, where each week we look at different NBA players and teams from each conference, and we go over all the highs and the lows that completely fell under the radar that week. This was opening week for the NBA, so we got some pretty hectic stuff to cover. I got some players and teams that really excited me and disappointed me. Let's get into it. Let's start with some players first that I want to shout out. I got some players in the West, and I got some players in the East. Let's start over in San Antonio. And no, I'm not covering Wemby. We've heard enough. He's great. I can't wait to see what he does. But there was somebody else on that team that completely got overlooked. Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell had a pretty solid week. It was completely overshadowed because all the coverage was on Wemby. But he scored over 20 points in both games. They didn't win every game, but they were very close. And one of them was against Luka. You know how Luka is on the crunch time. When I first heard of Devin Vassell, I saw he signed a $100 million contract. At first, I was like, who the hell is this? I talked to a couple other friends of mine that also watch basketball. They were like, who? $100 million. But honestly, after watching those two games, I think he has a really solid future, and I think him and Wemby are going to do some great things. Unfortunately, though, like I said, completely fell under because everybody was focused on Wemby. My next player is from the East. I don't know why this one seems kind of sleazy, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Donovan Mitchell. He had 27 points, 6 assists, and 0 turnovers against Brooklyn. Very solid. Then he had an explosive 43 points, 8 rebounds, 3 steals against OKC. They didn't win, but I do think he does deserve some praise. Now, he did leave the game with an injury on his hamstring. Personally, I'm not a doctor, but I would check his back too because he was carrying a lot in that game. My next player actually changed the format of this entire video. It was supposed to be one player from each conference, but I had to throw in an extra one just because he was that great and I could not ignore it. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This dude is unbelievable. He is super consistent, and he had some pretty crazy games in week 1. We were just talking about Donovan Mitchell, right? Who lost that 43-point game to Shai Gilgeous and the Oklahoma City Thunder. SGA had 34 points, 11 rebounds, 5 steals, and one of them was in crunch time. The other game was against Chicago. 31 points, 10 assists, and 66% shooting from the field or quarter. He's not human. They're undefeated. They have more picks than fans in attendance. And who cares? Because you have him and you have a bunch of other young guys on that team. They're still undefeated, and if you keep playing like that, maybe they'll stay that way. Kidding. Let's take it over to my next player from the East. Last one, Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas had 2 back-to-back solid games that completely went unnoticed. That boy had 36 points, shooting over 60% from the field against the Cavs. I guess everybody's having a great game against the Cavs. And against Dallas, he had 30 points, 7 boards, and again shot over 60% from the field. They did lose both of those games, but one of them was against Dallas, was very close. Again, Luka's very annoying when it comes to the fourth quarter. But if they keep playing like that and some other pieces start to fire off, they might win a lot more games. Or win a game. Now let's go over some teams that were very impressive in week 1. Starting in the West, I'm looking over at the New Orleans Pelicans. Now we knew, fully healthy, they were going to be great. We knew that Zion is going to do his thing when he's there. But this team has a lot of great pieces. They have a great veteran point guard who can shoot. They don't really shoot well, but he can. Great offensive wing, Brandon Ingram. Zion Williamson, big body. They got a lot of stuff going on in New Orleans. If they can stay healthy and get a little bit more production from the bench, I think they're going to have a really solid season. Now, my impressive team from the East, looking over at the Indiana Pacers. I saw what she did. Now, it's still early in the season, so it's hard to tell if their wins are against teams that are going to be good or not. Nonetheless, they're undefeated, and they scored a lot of points in their first 2 games. They first beat the Cavs, which is kind of a common theme here, 125 to 113. And they beat the Wizards, 143 to 120. Now, again, I don't know if this speaks more on how bad the defense is for Washington or how great the offense is in Indiana. But nonetheless, they scored 143 points, and they have not lost a single game this season. It's only been 2. What's interesting about Indiana is when you look at the box score, nothing really actually jumps out at you. It's just great team basketball. They play really well together. Everybody's sharing the ball. They have some great pieces there, obviously, but it's not a lot of hero ball, at least so far this year. Now, when it comes to the NBA, there's always winners and losers, and we have to get into some of those teams that were very disappointing in week 1. Now, the first team for week 1 that was very disappointing to me in the West was the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, this was a toss-up for me because I was going between Memphis and Houston, but I ended up picking Memphis because they played another game and they lost all of it. One of the losses was to the Nuggets. That's fine. The other loss was to the Pelicans. That's okay. Then they lost the Wizards. Now I know Steven Adams is out, that is very disappointing, but they have some great pieces on that team, man. They have Marcus Smart, great defender. They have Jaren Jackson Jr., another great defender. Desmond Bain, when he would go off, he's already doing great. Now I understand how big of a loss it is to not have John Morant. He's one of their best offensive players. He can drive to the hoop like it's nobody's business. He can dunk over a plane. There are some times where he can shoot. But aside from all of that, man, when it comes to the regular season, the Grizzlies usually do pretty well, and I was not expecting such a slow start for the season. Maybe over time, with all these new pieces, they'll start gelling together. Derrick Rose will come back into his prime. We'll see what happens, but as of right now, very disappointing. Lastly, I have my disappointing team from the East, the Atlanta Hawks. You lost to Charlotte, bro? You let Terry Rozier and Brandon Miller, who's still in training, give it to you? Now, I was watching this game. It was a very close game. It was very intense. But I was willing to bet my car that Atlanta was going to come back and win. Now, thanks to Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, I got to take the bus. They also lost to the Knicks, who the Knicks are always excited to give them the work because Trae Young completely disrespected them on their court. I get it. But you let DeAndre Hunter outscore DeJounte Murray and Trae Young? Have y'all seen your contracts? I love the addition of Sadiq Bey, and I do think over time Atlanta will find its way somewhat. I don't have them in the top tier of the Eastern Conference, but I also have them as the lottery teams. I have them somewhere in the middle, so I think down the line, they'll figure it out. But good Lord, very bad start. As of recording this video today, they do play Milwaukee again tonight, but I'm willing to bet my house, my bus pass, my kids, that they're going to lose that game tonight. Well, if they do win, I will apologize next week. I doubt it though. That's it for this one. I'm Jordan. What did I miss? Who am I sleeping on? Let me know down in the comments below, or wherever you feel like it. I'll be back next week for week 2.